by luck, by chance, we have an invitee from Poland, actually, who's currently in Tijuana, just in transit to the US, apparently. So lucky for us. The presentation of this seminar is titled The Ethics of Disruptive Technologies, New Trends, and the Hottest Solutions for AI Design. And it says the description says, current trends in the ethics of socially disruptive technologies, SDTs, involve capability approach, ethics by design, and value-sensitive design. I will explain what is hidden behind all these ideas and show memorable examples of ethics by design problem. I will present information about finished and ongoing science projects, and I will also shortly introduce my own research focused on professional ethics for AI industry and Bayesian challenges in the justice system. And the speaker today is Weronika Majek. I hope I pronounced it well.
That's good.
And she's a professional reporter with an academic background who I was telling her, for me, it's very interesting, her background, because she received a BA in International Cultural Studies and major in Media and Cultural Management, but also has an MA in Criminology. Okay, and she's currently involved as a PhD candidate at the University of Gdańsk, working in the field of philosophy of science. And at present, her PhD research is focused on the epistemological, ethical, and legal problems that arise from the use of AI in the court of law, connecting probabilistic issues with moral questions. She critically examines the process of introducing the algorithms into the legal world. So with that, I will let you with Weronika, and all yours.
Thank you for inviting me and having me here. It's I don't know if it's a chance or it's actually quite high probability of me reaching to local scientists during my trip, because that's what I always do. So from my point of view, the probability was high. But actually you inviting me here, it's a nice surprise. So thank you again for it. And hopefully I will not make the students sleep. I know it's Monday, but I'm short and I will shortly explain this subject, which is not very difficult. So what I'm talking today is ethics. What I'm talking about today is ethics, and it's ethics of socially disruptive technologies, which is, well, the disruptive technology is not new. It is something humankind was inventing since like ever. But fairly new is this idea of using this term socially disruptive technology just to analyze how this kind of technology is influencing societies and everyone. So what I will do today is I will explain what exactly this term means, and how it was used by the scientists in Netherlands on the conference I was attending some time ago, what I think about the ethics in AI and how we can make it better by using the professional codes of media. As a journalist, I was working actively as a journalist a few years back, and well, I think this influenced me a lot. So I'm using my knowledge from this other profession to introduce it for AI professionals as well. And in the end, I will just shortly tell you about my work, my dissertation, which is about prediction in justice systems. Hopefully you will just have a chance to know me better and my science questions. So maybe you can also, well, give me some answers that I'm looking for. SDT can be also explained as disruptive innovations or catalytic innovations. However, this catalytic innovation will be a subset of disruptive technology. It's distinguished by their primary focus on social change, where the change is most important, because the opposite of disruptive innovation is a sustaining technology. will be the one that is, well, better and maybe innovative, but is only there to keep things as they are, while disruptive innovation is all about change. So whatever there is to change what we have, to make it better, faster, and so on. So these SDTs, they transform everyday life, and it's just a concept. It's just a concept, a term to have a name for something we already know. So this concept is used to evaluate not only current technologies, but also historical changes. It is a special perspective that will let us analyze this change in the context of technology on one hand and social issues on another hand. So it's also just to learn about the relation between technology and humanity, simply. They not only transform the life and social institutions, cultural practices, and so on, but some they are so important for history, for the historical change, that they may also affect the fundamental beliefs, rights, and values that we share. So we have historical examples of such technologies, basically like printing press, steam engine, that's quite kind of obvious, electric lighting, the computer, of course, and the internet. But there are some other examples that may not come to mind as a very obvious example of innovative technology or disruptive innovation. For example, a bicycle. Bicycle doesn't seem very technical, at least nowadays, but actually at the moment it was built and introduced for the people, it was kind of a disruptive innovation. So I will later explain how to see it and what kind of perspective allows us to see it that way. There is also important notion that it's not necessarily a negative trait. When we think disruptive, we think about something that is a little bit scary or may simply destroy what we know and maybe don't really propose something new or something better. But it is not a negative trait. It is simply a game changer. So yes, it destroys what we know, but it doesn't mean it's only a negative thing. So what is also funny about SDTs is that they promise a lot. They promise more they can give, or at least than they can give now, because they promise the control over the world as we know it, over atoms, bits, genes, neurons, and whatever we know about biology. So they also want to redesign what we know, reconstitute what we know, to make it better, make it like faster, sometimes simpler, and it also includes human beings. So the cybernetics is also kind of a part of this disruptive technology trend. They are also characterized by the convergence of technologies. So they blend all the knowledge together in order to create something new. The physical, digital, biological spheres, they are all mixed and the lines between them are blurred. So they emerge in a context of a number of grand societal challenges. However, sometimes it's very hard to judge if there was a challenge first and this disruptive technology was a solution, or maybe there was this kind of technology and it was first, and then the challenge and the solutions were just the consequences of this technology that emerged. Sometimes it's really hard to say exactly what was first. There is also this user-provider relation, which is quite important. So a lot of this ethics only focus on people that are included, so people who use the technology. However, another big problem, and this is the problem, in my opinion, this is still open and it is open for the new research, is the problem of technological bubbles. So some parts of the world are excluded And this exclusion is also an ethical issue. So when people have no technology, no access to it, or they have too much of it, it's also an ethical problem. So this exclusion doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes some societies, they choose to not to be a part of new technological world. And it's also in an interesting point of view, an interesting thing to analyze ethically. They also provide great benefits as well as great harm. So as long as there is nobody to say stop for a moment and think ethically about the new technology, they may be problematic. But it's not like they are only problematic. It is just one of the possibilities. And this is also the ethics, as I'm talking about it right now, is simply the ethics of technological development and implementation. And this is this point where we come to this AI and algorithmic tools. Because this is exactly the ethics I'm discussing in my dissertation, the ethics of development of AI and implementation of AI. So how to do it right. What is also important in this perspective is that social change is the primary objective. So we just analyze everything in the context of the social change, but not with this idea on mind that social change is bad, because changes are simply changes. They are not good or bad. We made them good or bad, yeah? It is just a change. So to evaluate the change, we need some tools. And this kind of framework just gives us the tools to analyze these new technologies. It is also important to remember that this kind of technologies, they change what we know. So if there is something simpler, less expensive, or more accessible, it is simply sabotaging. It is against the current products. So what is important is that what we have now cannot disrupt themselves. Yes, the product wants to be as it is. So this catalytic innovation most often is coming from the outside of the established players, sometimes outside of the profession, like the medical profession may be disrupted by, for example, computing, yeah, these are two different professions, but it will be most likely that some other kind of professionals will find a new technology, new solution for a different profession than within this profession, because it's really hard to disrupt yourself. What we tend to do is we tend to stay steady as we are. So that's why this mix of several different professions and different genres of science and culture, sometimes art, this is very important. So they influence each other. It doesn't have to be radical or very innovative as well. The disruption may come with just replication. We all know it from the algorithmic decision-making tools, for example, from the automation, inclusiveness, efficiency, and lower prices. If we think today what kind of products we had in terms of personal computers and personal offices at home 10 years ago, well, simply this kind of pandemic we had would be impossible. It would be impossible. It was so expensive to have a good computer, to have a big memory disk, and so on, that, well, nowadays it's so different, and it's just a few years. So now we can imagine what will be in the next few years or few decades. So this framework gives us the tools to evaluate what we invent, simply. And now I will explain you these three perspectives, so you can just use it in your work in case you need to evaluate what you did. There is this capability approach. which is designed as a kind of normative framework to evaluate the quality of human life and the process of development. So it attempts to apply the capability approach from another kind of scientific professions to technology and design. Actually, what is the most important is that human capabilities will be at the center stage of discussion. And it is also important in the context of justice, equality, or generally human rights, while these human capabilities are important to enhance simply. And it highlights the importance of human agency and freedom. So in other kind of approaches, if you evaluate a new technology, you can, for example, focus on preference satisfaction or resource provision or how fast it is. Yeah, we all like when it's faster than it was before. Like, what is faster is better, isn't it? But sometimes you can just change the perspective and simply think of whatever there is innovative in this way of how it will enhance these capabilities. So this perspective tends to think of technical objects as the ones that have a generative and transformative dimension. And within those two dimensions, you can evaluate how the technology will enhance the capabilities. And obviously, what is also important is to decide which capabilities are valued more than others. But it's like the process of thinking before you start evaluating. So each of these points could be expanded toward a separate seminar, obviously. I am just trying to shortly take you through this trip across new trends of technology evaluation. So it frames this analysis of the development impact of technology. And for example, we can think about bicycle again. Well, it's not surprising that this idea was born in Netherlands. Netherlands or Holland is well known of their bikes, and they love bicycles. They ride them all the time, and this is quite important because the detail of the design was so important and impacted the human capabilities in so many ways that nowadays we can see that the whole country, the cities there, are built around the idea of bicycle because there are bike roads, they have bike parkings, people are using bikes on a daily basis, they go on their bikes to the offices, they don't use cars. The air is fresh. If you have ever been to Netherlands, you can immediately feel it. You just get out of your plane or get out of your ship, however you get there, and you just feel that the air is different there. And this artifact's impact on human capability to mobility and to get somewhere faster and in a more healthy way. People are generally healthier in Netherlands, and this is, well, the bicycle is one of the reasons of why it is as it is. So human rights and dignity are also the basis of critical evaluation, or at least in this perspective proposed by Buchanan. And the broadening of human capabilities can be the perspective for evaluation of the product in this functional approach. So we can simply evaluate the functionality of such an artifact. There is another perspective, another trend. It's called ethics by design. And this perspective is just a bunch of rules, simply. The main idea here is to design whatever is in a way that it makes the user or it motivates the user to be ethical. So simply whatever you design, it may be, I don't know, like something simple like the water bottle or something more difficult like a new car, but to design it in a way that the user is motivated to act in a better way than he would be acting without this product. So I will just go through the rules because rules are kind of simple and there is just few of them. So what is important to remember when you want to design with this ethics by design guide in mind is to provide enough information for people to make informed decisions at every stage about whether, when, how to use the product. It is to respect people's right to choose how they engage with the product or service and to offer alternatives or as much customization as possible. It is to balance appropriate privacy and security with equitable access by as many systems and as many people as possible globally. This privacy issue is very important in Europe at least, so we have these new rules upcoming about the privacy. And these new rules are gradually implemented since at least 2001, so it's almost 20 years. It takes a lot of time to implement a new legal framework in Europe, but we are almost there. And it is important to seek to integrate with and support the progression of policy. It is also important to actively look for and challenge biases and values that may be reflected in a product or service design. It is important to complement differing needs, abilities, viewpoints, and morals. It is important to support shared decision-making and feedback, so to include the user when you make the decision about the product or the future of the product. It is important to aim for economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable designs, and to integrate planning for how to handle failure, including transparency and reporting. It is also important to be realistic about what is possible and needed, so also to support the product or service throughout its lifespan. The third perspective, the third trend, is called value-sensitive design, and it accounts for human values in a principled and comprehensive manner throughout the design process. So, there's so many words, so to put it simple, it is just important to remember that humans have values, people have values, different people have different values, and just to be, to care for them. It's as simple as that. So it employs an integrative and iterative methodology. Just to remember that you can run some investigation about your new ideas or your new technology, and it can be either conceptual, empirical, or technical, and all these three levels are equally important. It seeks to be proactive, so to influence the design of technology as early as possible and throughout the design process as well. And it enlarges the arena in which values arise to include not only the workplace, but also education, home, commerce, online communities, and public life. Well, we have values in our lives, and it is important that the design we interact with holds, let's say, holds, quote unquote, the same values. It is important to remember that all values should be included, also the one with moral import. So not only participation and democracy is important, cooperation and the feedback and so on, but also some moral values. It is also an interactional theory. So people and social systems affect technological development, And the other way around, the new technologies tend to shape individual behavior and social systems. So it is happening anyways. We may just remember to shape individual behavior in a way that is ethical, or as ethical as possible. It draws on moral epistemology simply because this perspective stands on point that certain values have moral importance, moral standing, which is independent of whether a particular person or group upholds such values. So values may be different within different social groups, different nations, different communities, but there are some values which are independent of these particular differences. It also maintains that certain values are universally held, although how such values play out in a particular culture at a particular point in time can vary considerably. So, well, this is a point that is so large, it could have been like several seminars on this one. But basically, we all differ as societies. But at some point in the history and some point in time, most probably, even if we differ today, the two societies held similar values anyway. They may just be apart of 200 years from each other or 2000 years of each other, but sooner or later they will either go there or some societies may regress towards certain values. This is just a matter of perspective. So what is the difference between these three possible trends? This capability approach will analyze moral value of new technology. The by design approach will be a manual of how to design with values, and value-sensitive design will simply uncover interactions of tech-user relations and evaluate these interactions. So I can show you some examples how to evaluate what we innovate, or how to make an innovation in this ideas on mind. This slide, the slide in Dutch kindergarten example. This is a short story. A designer, an architect, he proposed that he had to design the entrance to the kindergarten. Yeah. So this place where parents leave their kids and go home or go to work, and the kids are staying in kindergarten. So most often there are simply a door, like big doors. You just get in, get out. What he invented was to put a slide from the first floor downstairs, so the kids could slide down when they finished the day and to meet, and so the parents were waiting outside near to the slide. What is it's a funny idea, isn't it? I think it's really nice. What is controversial here is that the real assignment was not to design the entrance or the exit doors to the kindergarten. The assignment was to design a place where parents will start talking to each other. Because the real assignment was to bring up the community together, to make people talk to each other so they know each other. Because up to this point of time, to that point in time, parents simply were bringing kids and going back, getting out, and they didn't talk, they didn't interact. So the assignment was to do something to make people interact. And it's a nice idea because parents had to stand next to the slide and wait for the kids. They couldn't see which kid will come out. Yeah, because it was like at 3 o'clock was the end of the day, and all the parents had to go next to the slide and wait for the kids, so they started to talk. But it is a little bit fishy, isn't it? Because it's does it sound like manipulation? It kind of does. So sometimes even the best intention can be a little bit manipulative. The other example is the experiments of Samurai Lab, which is based partially in Poland, partially in California, and this is the lab I'm going to visit. So what they invented is it's a hate speech bot that is able to not only spot the hate speech, but also to to fight it in a more constructive way than we know right now. So what the bot is doing, the bot is pretending to be a person, a user of the social media, any given social media, and when he sees hate speech towards somebody, he is not blocking or banning the user. He starts asking questions, and this the bot is writing comments like, I know you may be angry because the subject is very hot right now, but you should maybe think how you talk to this other person because he may feel very bad about what you just wrote. And suddenly users started to watch their language. So there is this few experiments they already run, and the experiments are very promising that this kind of bot is very successful in, slowing down or quieting down whenever this conversation is getting very difficult or is going directly towards the hate speech. The only problem is that users are not aware of it, that they are a part of experiment, because these experiments are undercover. The bot has just a name, and he pretends to be a user. So the company is evaluating how this bot is interacting, and this is kind of an experiment, but well, people are not aware of it. If they were aware of it, the experiment would be not as good as it is now. So because this knowledge that they are a part of experiment would probably affect how they act. So this is controversial as well. And on this issue, I personally, I am also advising to the team, and I have a few ideas how to uphold these experiments in the future in a manner that it will be not so controversial. So there are new ideas upcoming, and hopefully we'll have these experiments more ethical quite soon. So that's basically it. I will simply now, I will shortly tell you about similar projects or the projects in Europe that are there considering this area of research. And there is one finished project. It's called Siena project. I really advise you to go to this website because there is lots of information if you are into the subject. They received from European Commission about 4 million euros, so lots of money. It was addressed towards ethical issues in 3 new and emerging technology areas: human genomics, human enhancement, and human-machine interaction. And there was an aim to develop ethical codes for human genomics and such, to improve existing ethical and legal frameworks for all 3 areas. So this project is finished. We may expect that soon in terms of European Union legal issues will be probably in the next 20 years. We will have some new legal regulations that are based on this project. And it was coordinated by the University of Twente, it's in Netherlands, and partners were UNESCO, Council of Europe, WHO, and few others organizations. So lots of institutions were engaged. And the main part of the project was a large-scale opinion surveys performed in 11 countries to translate and adapt these ethical frameworks in collaboration with relevant stakeholders and to generalize the approaches for developing, translating, and adapting ethical frameworks that were established during this project. We have also one ongoing project. It is called the Ethics of SDTs project. Actually, not we, I don't. It is in Netherlands. It's run by 4 Dutch universities. And the Dutch government shared quite a huge amount of money. It's about 18 million euros. They are open, as far as I know, they have open spots for students and PhD candidates from all over the world. So whoever is interested in this subject, it is worth to write someone from either of these universities to just stay in touch, to establish a connection, just as I did. I just wrote Professor and now I am talking to you. So this is exactly what you can also do. They will be developing new methods needed to better understand the development and implementation of the new generation of disruptive technologies, to evaluate them from a moral perspective and to intervene in a way technology continues to develop. And another important aspect of the program is the cooperation between ethicists, philosophers, and technical scientists, aimed at finding better methods for responsible and sustainable innovation. So that will be it of my presentation. I just want to show you the poster I presented and at this conference. Let me just a moment. Oh, where is it? Oh yeah, there it is. All right. I will not show you the whole poster. I don't want you to be bored. But this is like my personal idea, which is a part of my dissertation as well. And can you see it? Hopefully, I think you should. So it is on how to implement this media code of practice into this AI profession. So some ethical lessons we can take from this media code of practice. And media code of practice is good for 2 reasons. First, I know it very well, so I can use it. As a former professional and as a media specialist, I just know many codes of practice because there is several of them. And the second reason is that it is developed for over 200 years. So they had like ups and downs, but more or less they are almost there. And if we agree that AI is just a newborn, that's as a newborn it should learn from the elders, and media code is just this kind of elderly to learn from. So we have these several points in the media code of practice, which is like test the accuracy of information, follow the obligation to identify sources, question the motives of the source, show compassion, remember the gathering and reporting information may cause harm or discomfort, admit mistakes and correct them. Sometimes you do it on your own, sometimes, the judge tells you to say sorry if you publish something that you need to be sorry for, and so on and so on. Expose unethical practices. These are like the main points. So since I am analyzing this algorithm that are used in decision-making processes in the justice system, I find out that there are some, this is a good analogy. There are some similarities actually, because this algorithm, they also work with information. They gather information, they use data, and then they just give you an answer. So they just, they publish the information, let's say, the output. So, after some time of thinking about it, I proposed this kind of solutions, like compare the parallel data sets. So it would be perfect to have different sources on the same issues. Obviously, we are not there yet because collecting sources and collecting information is super expensive at this point. So just a few companies can provide this kind of big data sets. But, well, the truth is, like 200 years ago, when the first newspaper was born, it was only one paper in one city or one paper in one country. And it was also very expensive to have more press or to have more media. It was super expensive to build up a new media house. But nowadays, look around, we have so many newspapers, even the smallest city have a few of them, so you can choose from. So hopefully in a few years, we will just have more parallel data sets to compare. And this applies to actually each of these points, because I know that at this point of time, it is just impossible to, well, to live by these rules, but we can just keep them in mind for the future. So it is important to double check what perspective the dataset represents. If this algorithm of justice system in United States, just as Compass, for example, is using datasets from the police, which were gathered like 30 years ago or 50 years ago, because sometimes they are just as old, well, it will be, well, it's obvious what kind of perspective this data represents. It's a perspective of the police. And sometimes it's not the best perspective, actually. So juxtapose the data coming from different organizations with different incentives and different agenda. So you can question the motives of the source. In the perfect world, we would have data about this past criminal behavior, not only from the police, but also from some independent social organizations. We just need to find the ways to support those organizations with money and resources so they can collect the data. And it is important to consider the impact of false negative and false positive outcomes. In this context of social justice or of the justice system and legal systems, well, the false negative would be if we well, it depends how you look at this, but let's say we have a criminal and we can either decide how probable it is that he will be criminal again, if he will do something wrong again. If the algorithm decides, oh, it's very probable, but he will not do anything again, we will keep him in jail with no reason. But if the algorithm decides that, oh yes, it's not very probable, he will be good, he will be a good person, and we let him out and he kills someone, well, that's kind of a big error, isn't it? So these types of errors, we need to evaluate them, not only in the private context of a person that is held in jail with not really a good reason, because algorithms said that he will be criminal again, but also from the social perspective. And then it is very hard. It is not easy. We also need to always consider subjects' privacy and rights. That's obvious, actually. And what would be perfect is to build open domain knowledge and data sets. For example, lots of scientists who analyze online behavior or how the information spreads, they like to use Twitter, because on Twitter you can very simply download huge data sets, huge databases on how the users behave, and you can just put them through all the imaginable statistical analysis and just find out the answers to your questions. So Twitter is a good example because everything is almost open in there. And then it is also important to expose wrongful data use and any other unjustified operations. It sounds like it's not innovative or it's just obvious, but the funny thing is that we have a few professional codes for AI developers already, and sometimes this little point is not there, so quite often it's not there. So this is important to remember. And what I am personally working on, I just finished my chapter about the ethics, or I think so. Probably my advisor has a different opinion on this. So now I'm working on my second chapter, which will be these epistemical problems of how to define fairness mathematically. So how to evaluate if the algorithm is fair or not. And then finally, I will also analyze it from the legal point of view of how this kind of evidence can or should not be used in courts. I have a little problem of priors because this algorithm like Compass, they are used to predict and point out if someone will be criminal in the next 2 years after he has first crime already committed, or crime or misdemeanor. But the problem is here, like, because his prior probabilities get higher, yeah, he's a criminal already, so he has quite high priors, and then we can try to evaluate the posteriors. But if we could really use it as a predictive system, what would be great is to just help people not to become criminals in the first part. So to help them not to become criminals, it's the problem of priors. So how we can evaluate how possible it is that some people will commit crimes and others will not before they actually commit it. And I do not want to introduce any kind of minority report to reality. My goal is to improve prevention, but improve prevention not in a way that we put people in jail even if they don't commit anything, but to spot the problems, spot these social family issues, educational issues behind the criminal activity, and to help people become better person, you know, because this is what society should do, or at least I'm from the country where we believe it should be done this way. In the United States, it's a little bit different. But good schools, I don't know, some kind of medical support from the state, family support, and so on. These are all the tools that are invented by the state to help people not to become criminals. So this is quite important, in my opinion. And these problems are very easy to describe in terms of social scientists, but epistemically and mathematically, they are not so easy anymore. So I have my own little struggle with it right now. And I will share some literature with you if you would like to dig this subject up a little bit more. But I would like to finish with one important last but not least statement. As far as I understand, I'm talking today to the students of the Faculty of Engineering. So whenever, if doesn't matter if you are a developer, a future engineer, or a technician, or whatever, it's like, as a professional, you should be aware of all these issues. But I think we cannot expect from those technical engineers, developers, to understand this issue very well and to think about them all the time. Developers are there to write the code, not to think about ethics. So what I believe is that in the team of very big projects, there should be an ethicist, or there should be a person from the outside of the team, but the one who can consult this kind of issues. Because this spreading the awareness is very important. So yeah, I'm here to do it today. So just to make people more aware about this kind of ethical questions. But in the practice, the truth is there's much more to it. Like each separate point I told you today about can be a separate seminar on it. So what is very important is just to consult this kind of things and to ask this kind of questions to ethicists, and to simply create new profession within the team of developers. So this kind of outsider who will ask all these not very comfy questions, just as I do today, because sometimes there is more question than answers, actually, and that's another problem of ethics. So thank you for listening today, and I hope I didn't bore you to the core today. Thanks. That's it.
Thanks to you. Really thanks. Meanwhile, there's time for questions. While you think your questions, maybe you can go to the people list and raise your hand if you want to ask the question directly, or leave a question at the chat, and I'll pose the question. So while you think about your questions, I'll just comment that it is true. Most of the people who are connected today are students of a master's or a PhD in computer science or other technical venues, you know. But I remember when I was a long time ago a student of a bachelor's in computer science, we didn't pay no attention to these social issues, none. You know, we didn't have even one class dedicated to social issues of technology, whatever. And now I'm at this more mature age, if you will, I'm really, appalled by the lack of attention that we technologists pay to these issues that are so important, you know. So I think we should be more proactive in having this kind of discussions and seminars in at least in our department, but in the whole of CICESE or of the institution in general, you know. So thanks in advance for this. I think it's very nice to start this kind of conversations. So let me see. Ricardo, Jose Ricardo has a question. Would you like to take the microphone, Ricardo? A ver. José Ricardo, ¿quieres preguntar directo o ponerlo ahí en el chat la pregunta? Okay. Somebody wants to ask a question, but the microphone is not working.
Okay, so he can write it down.
Yeah,
I will not. I will keep sharing my screen because my internet, my Wi-Fi at the hotel is also very not steady. So
okay, no problem.
As long as it's working, yes, we are good. Yeah.
Okay, so can you see the question of Ricardo right now in the chat?
Yeah, I can see it. False positive, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I really love this question. That's a nice idea. Well, actually, you may spot one thing with me already because I really love Netherlands. I've been living in Amsterdam for a while, so I could observe how they resolve their social problems. So the thing with Netherlands is that they closed the jails. I mean, seriously, the jails are closed. They are empty. There's no people in jail. And why is that? First of all, the prevention goes much further than only predicting if someone will be a criminal or not, and false positives and false negatives. The prevention starts much earlier. First, with better legal framework, much better than we have in Poland, and very much better than they have in the United States. Then with good schools, public schools, from the way up, from the very beginning, people are socialized in a different way than we do in Poland, for example. And the schools are very good. And then if there is a person with a problem, for example, like drug problem, they don't put them in jail, they put them in the medical facilities because they see it as a person that needs help, not as a criminal. So basically, besides these few people that are still killing or trying to kill someone else, and these are most often gangs, so what they do is if they catch them, they depart them. So they send these criminals back to their countries. And there are simply just, I don't know, there are like so few and so small places we can call jail in Netherlands that the other places are just being changed into some social spots for the local communities and so on, because jails are not in Netherlands. So this is the way to go, like in a broader perspective. Exactly, if we just change the name of the jail into what you said here, like social consultancy center. That is exactly what we can do to help people behave better, yeah, or to help them not conduct criminal behaviors. Way another thing is what we call criminal, yeah, because there is a whole part of legal system that makes people criminal, even if they, well, in some other countries they wouldn't be criminals, yeah. So these kind of issues are very important, and yes, I would say I agree 100%. We don't really need jails as we know them right now, and these places are not serving the purpose that they should be serving to people. And not the people in jails, but the people outside of jails, the society as a whole.
I have a comment on that also. I have read reports from some preventive crime programs that have been mostly in the U.S., but the framework of the U.S., that they have the highest percentage of jail citizens in the world, basically keeping people in jail is a business for them, So, but there's also these preventive crime programs that use these algorithms, predictive algorithms, and they're really biased. They have been really biased towards communities of Black people, minorities in general, because they say, okay, where are the most crimes have been committed in these neighborhoods? Okay, so it's more likely that this perpetuates, the cycle.
Yeah.
Send
That's
more
the
people
problem
in
with
those.
this historical data bias as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a problem also. I think that it deserves a separate conversation, separate discussion, but it's also very, very prevalent.
I know.
So is there another ones who would like to post a question or maybe a comment? Well, what you think about it? Let me just share another thought that I have. This you shared several trends like value-sensitive design, ethics by design, and stuff like that. And I was thinking about the ethos of the communities of the developers of the technologies. Like important producer of technologies, Silicon Valley. One of the ethos of Silicon Valley is break things and move fast. Just get things to market, and we'll see later what the societal consequences are. So in that framework, law has to be reactive. And as you said earlier, to develop these ethical frameworks and then convert those into legal frameworks, it might take a decade or, I don't know, a lot of years. So we're always in a reactive mode, So how can we strike a balance of not stopping innovation, but also, having some checks and balances to not break a lot of things while we're moving fast. So have you any thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm thinking about this constantly. Well, the truth is, I'm a little bit of idealist, Like, I really don't want to put too much of a legal framework because I do not want to kill innovation even before it's born. That would be really awful because innovation is good. Not good in an ethical way, but it's good that we have it. What is very important is to make people more aware. So I really believe that the more this kind of talks we have, well, there is this ethical boards. Google was trying to make an ethical board. That's like a funny story because they had such a big problem to decide who should be at the board that in the end they decided not to have a board at all because there was so much fight over it who should sit there. So this is exactly what I said in the end. Like, I do not expect from every developer to be so ethically educated as I am, because I spent last 2 years digging this subject. But what I think is very important is to help them understand this issue and to help them, to give developers, technicals, engineers those tools, exactly the tools I was talking today about. So before they even start working very hard on the code, they can simply just go through few points and think about it, if it's even worth it at this point. Because sometimes all this marketing is only just the reason for all this marketing and doing things faster is just to cover for this sad reality that what they did was not worth it. So they just need to sell it anyhow. I think that's a problem. I think it's, do you know this, what they did in, it is Los Angeles or Las Vegas, this loop of Tesla loop or whatever.
Yeah, the hyperloop.
They made, yeah, like these ideas are so crazy. I don't really understand. It's like they could have another line of metro, and just put people there and ride them around. And instead, they just built like one car tunnel. I don't know. I don't understand it so much. It's so crazy. But this just covers it. I think it's like a covering for the real problem, which is like they don't know what to do. And this is also what I always say. It's like, there is always this big discussion in the sciences, like if human sciences, social sciences, are they even necessary? And this is exactly what I say, like they are, because like you engineers, technicians, you can build wonderful things. You can create amazing, innovative, wonderful, mysterious for us, for us who are not engineers. They are like mysterious, magical things. But sometimes you tend to build huge things in the places where they are not necessary. And this is where is the place for humanities and human sciences. Just to hold your horses and to discuss a little bit longer what exactly should be built and where. And because maybe we can together find a better place for it, So, yeah.
Okay, so Alejandra wants to pose a question?
Sure.
Or a comment?
Yeah, like one of the ethical problems regarding technologies right now is privacy issues. Right now, I've heard like Apple, it's been trying to scan people's phones, like not something that's on the cloud or anything, but scanning them for pictures or videos for child abuse. And on paper that sounds good, but many people fear that governments will use them as a tool to control the citizens. What do you think about privacy issues? That, like, Apple has always been about privacy and against Facebook and those companies that are always checking and selling your information. What do you think about that, like that breach of trust they're breaking? Or like, it sounds good, but sometimes people use technology to for other.
That's a great question.
Yeah, so what are your opinions about privacy issues?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this question. It's a really great one. And there are several perspectives you can analyze it from. So first of all, this like searching through the phones to find something criminal, like this children photos or something, yeah. Well, it would be like we already have this kind of prevention. I'm all against this kind of prevention. It would be like letting or allowing the police to go to every single household in a city and just search through it in order they find something. The truth is, in front of Kurt, at this point of time, when we are today, there is no legal system in the world, probably, where this kind of evidence could be admissible. Because it would be like the police going to your house without a special judge settlement with the judge, so without special permission, and just finding out something there. It would be not even admissible. So from this legal point of view, it's simply stupid because no one can even use it later in court. It's not evidence. It's not. Oh, excuse me. No, está bueno. Yeah, thanks. So from this legal point of view, it's like we are not there yet. So I see no reason to do it even. And on the other hand, this kind of prevention is the worst. It's like if you let police go to every household in the city without no special like reason to do it, then it's not a police anymore. It's some kind of, I don't know, hidden force of, I don't even know how to call it. It's like it's not the police, and it's not policing. It's something else. So yeah, I'm all against it. About selling the data. Well, this is exactly the point that I started to think about the data as an information, and just as in the media. Yes, media make money with information. Some companies make money with information, and exactly this is how it should be legally framed. So as long as people can share the information, want to share it. So these are all the points. Maybe I can go back to them, like all these points from the by design approach. So whatever is there is just to make users more aware of how they share data. And then it's up to the user how he wants to share it. And maybe, just maybe in the future, he can maybe even make money from his data together with the company he sold it to, yeah? So they can share this income. And from this like personal point of view, I can just tell you that I use Google Maps and my partner uses Google Maps. So he has a full experience. Wherever he goes, he's talking directly to the phone and finding new addresses, and the Google Maps know his home address and everything. I am the kind of a person that I have blocked almost everything, so Google Maps have no information on me. What does it mean in practice? Every time I go home from a new part of the city that I'm not sure how to go there, I need to put my address all over again because Google Maps doesn't know my address. So it's a little bit inconvenient, you know, it's totally different experience for me and for my partner. It's much, I would say, easier for him. On the other hand, I'm happy where I am with my experience. So it's always up to the user, yeah? What is very important is to let everyone be aware of how it works and what he shares. And maybe in the future, he can even have some revenue from sharing. So that would be even better. I hope that answers your question. But maybe you have some follow-up.
And there's also another question about that by Ricardo on the chat. You know, it has to do with the changing societies, you know, changing values of societies. So, yeah, can you check out the question, or should I read it?
What if the society changes instead? Our concept of positive and negative is given. Oh, well, then just well, that's another great question. Wow, you have great questions. I mean, seriously, that's great. Well, simply the game will change. So from if we have this society where massive system like this of data gathering would be something normal, also visual data, so just like cameras everywhere and so on and so on, and everyone agrees that it's okay. We want prevention like this because we want to be so safe that nobody can do anything without knowledge of the system. Well, then what kind of disruption will be? The technology that covers your face in front of the camera, yeah? This will be disruptive technology. It will just be the other way around. Like, there is this, I don't remember which country it is. Was it Germany or somewhere? Maybe even United? I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe USA, or maybe there is like a few but there are some people that are painting their faces. So this is like a very visual makeup on the face. So the cameras are getting confused. So simply when they go in front of the camera, they cannot be recognized. So you don't even need a special technology for that. This is just a painting on your face. So
yeah, they were doing that in Hong Kong during the protests. Maybe some other places,
for
but in Hong
example,
Kong.
yeah. So this is kind of, let's say, technology. Well, it's not very technical, but well, it's just a makeup, but still, to make a disruption. Yes. So simply, things are changing. Life is changing. World is changing, and this kind of theoretical framework can help us understand what is going on. But the change is there, and it's okay. You know, we just have to live with it.
Yeah, I think that there's a little comment
Yeah,
or follow up. Like,
yeah. Well, now we live in this global, uh, yeah, how you call it, like a global village. Yes, so that's another big problem, actually, what you point out here. For example, the use of Facebook in Poland. So we have these local rules. They are completely different than rules in United States. However, the servers are in United States, so the information gathered are there. So we cannot apply Polish rules to the information that is physically in another country. So yeah, this kind of legal problems are, well, I'm not a legalist, so I'm not a lawyer myself. However, I was studying at the Faculty of Law, my criminology. So from the criminal point of view, I would say it's a fascinating subject because we really need to clean this up, yeah? Clean up all these legal issues that are surrounding whatever new technology is coming up. Most probably it is not possible to have one universal solutions. It is not. So we just need to seek for as many of them as possible to make it easier, but not to kill this technology. Yeah. Because we want this technology. It's a great thing. It's just a tool. It's like a knife. You can cook a beautiful meal with your knife, or you can kill somebody. It is exactly like that, yeah. So thank you. Great questions, really.
I think we'll stop here because we can spend a few hours here discussing because these topics are really, really, they have a lot of issues. They are technical as well as social, human issues. So, but okay, I was supposed to be sharing like a diploma or whatever to thank you. I'm gonna send you that by email. And it basically says that CICESE, our institution, thanks you for your talk, your seminar. and it's signed by the head of the department, of the computer science department. I'm gonna be sending you that through email. And I thank you for in behalf of all the colleagues for your participation. Very interesting talk. And on my part, I'm sure that if I have some need some pointers to some literature or some papers or something, I will. If you agree, I will write to you to ask you for pointers. Okay. So thanks a lot. We'll end the seminar today. Okay. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
It was a pleasure. Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Weronika. Have a safe trip.
Yeah, thank you.